Welcome to Core Finance, live from London. Sponsored by Beaufort Securities, live on Facebook at Core Finance TV, and for you youngsters out there, Twitter handle at Core Finance TV. Joined by Matt Brown. Morning to you, Matt.
Morning, Moose.
Right, let's kick off without further ado. Market movers: Trump, Jackson Hole, Draghi and PMIs dominate the markets. Brexit talks loom. What could go wrong?
Indeed, lots going on here. Trump coming out yesterday saying, look, even if the government comes to a standstill, he will get the finance for the wall with Mexico. So more rhetoric coming from him, but also reports that actually they're getting the tax reform into a situation where they can present it to Congress and it may get signed off. It is very, very watered down, though, from what the markets were expecting at the start of the year. So was that the main reason for the Trump bump, or was it strong company performances in the US? But certainly this has helped the US market overnight, and we move in now to the Jackson Hole symposium. That's been probably the highlight of this week. Obviously the central bankers all meeting. Don't expect anything from Draghi is what he's saying. However, he has been speaking in Germany this morning and has made in a statement that monetary policy may be open to new challenges. Now this has got the euro going a little bit this morning. Don't expect anything from Jackson Hole, but he's given the market a little bit there for the euro bulls. PMIs as well out of Europe have been strong this morning. We're looking forward to US PMIs later on, so there's some key macro data points. And Brexit talks loom, as you say. What could go wrong? A bit of talk about potentially, well, from Theresa May talking about Britain exiting the ECJ, which is the European Court of Justice, which is separate from European Parliament. So as well, unwinding a lot of legal things that have been in place over 40 years. So that's important as well, and keep an eye out on that.
An excellent wrap. Sounds like you should be our man in Europe, young Matt. Okay, let's move on to the FTSE one to watch. WPP, numbers out today. What were the headlines?
Interim results, shocking.
Oh, really?
Again, their forward sales numbers, they've reduced them. Now, WPP involved in advertising, and as we know, advertising now is moving to digital, away from television, away from newsprint, etc. And the market is becoming digitised. This could be a threat to WPP. We're seeing their margins reduce. Their costs are up about 14–15% this year in the first half. So the margins are being squeezed. They are, though, one of the biggest buyers of Facebook and Twitter advertising space. So they are involved in that, but they're seeing problems in the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, China. The shares are down about 11% on the back of this. It's been a darling of the market. Everyone loves Sir Martin Sorrell.
Apart from his pay.
Yeah, apart from his pay, he was pushing, I think, for up to nearly 50 million. It's a big number. Is he worth it? Who knows? But WPP now could be out of favour. It's something that's changing. We're seeing with Pearson as well, with the textbooks, etc. in the US. WPP are an old school model. Can they revolutionise their business?
Understood. Let's move on to the AIM one to watch. Light wave radio frequency. You did an interview yesterday. Have we published that?
It's with Share Talk, but it will be published, so take a look at that. It's a good interview, and in contrast to WPP, Lightwave are a business that actually make physical products. They're in the Apple Store, and these are products that you can integrate with the internet to control your lights, your heating, potentially spot water leaks, etc., burglar alarms. So it's a very interesting company. The market cap's about 10 million. It's doubled in value year to date. But one thing they are doing, as I say, is creating software and hardware. There's been a lot of talk about, obviously, apps and companies developing software. Yep. The problem is that the investors can't get their head around is actually what is that worth. Yep. Now, this company actually has software and hardware, and that makes it good for investors and potentially raising capital because there's a product there. They're in the UK. It's a small company. It's not necessarily looking at this company. Just bear that in mind for investors that look for not necessarily just technology, but companies that
technology and a solution.
Yeah,
right. Let's talk about currencies. The pound, euro, Great British pound 91.98, and Great British pound against the US dollar 128.15. Interviews coming out. Look out for basically the British pound looking extremely weak against Japanese yen, CAD, and the US dollar 128, a key chart point. In terms of euro, Great British pound, lots of people talking about parity by Christmas.
It could be on the cards. I mean, we've seen, as I've already mentioned, an uplift for the euro today, and I think a lot of that's going to be about euro strength. PMI numbers out this morning outperformed. So if Europe performs well and we don't get the proper result from Brexit negotiations, parity, as they could be on the cards.
Okay, let's move swiftly on to the broker upgrades. Jefferies today, the company Meggitt's, a new recommendation, buy from hold. Couple of headlines on that?
Yeah, no price targets, just no, obviously moving to buy. They like the stock. It's in the aerospace defence industry. Again, going back to Lightwave, it's a company that has software and also hardware. With Trump talking about putting potentially more troops into Afghanistan, having previously said in reducing that whole aerospace sector is of interest. Jefferies they like the stock, upgraded to a buy, and the stock's up 3% this morning on the back of it.
Let's move on to the core number, 300 million. What could that be?
Well, it's a number being touted, how much Neil Woodford and the Woodford funds have lost on the back of them backing Provident Financial. Obviously, that was the biggest faller in the FTSE, one of the biggest fallers in longer than I can remember. You've got to go back to Royal Bank of Scotland, Marconi trading days, 10, almost decades for such a big fall for a FTSE company. Now, this is it's in the headlines, as we can see. Star Fund boss defiant over Provident fall. This is Neil Woodford on the front of City AM. It's getting a lot of press this morning. A bad day in the office for him, no doubt about it. But bear in mind, I believe you had Paul Wallace on earlier talking about diversification and managing a portfolio. Neil Woodford, this was 4% of most of his funds.
Portfolio.
So look, a bad day, the headlines aren't great. I'm sure a few investors will start questioning his capabilities as a fund manager and withdrawing assets and funds from the account. But it goes to show to all investors, small or big, if you diversify, don't have one stock in your portfolio, because if you have a bad day like Provident Financial yesterday, that's it, game over. Neil Woodford will live to fight another day. The bad press obviously isn't good for him, but it was only 4% of his portfolio.
Good point. Right, let's wrap up with the economic calendar today in the US. Kaplan speaks at 2:05. We've got the market PMI 245, and we got new home sales 3 o'clock, and then finally EIA crude oil stocks change, that weekly oil number. Matt Brown, final thoughts.
Final thought, buyer beware if you're looking at Provident Financial. I think people are probably looking for a cheap pick up and expect a dead cat bounce. Just be aware of that. But again, goes back to diversify your portfolio.
Thank you very much indeed.